Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell dev stream, the live stream series where I continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platforming mechanics and a brushing narrative. And if you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and boot that bell button to stay notified. Now, where we previously left off, we were working on some sound effects regions for some metal platforms. So, for example, you'll notice that if I walk around here, it sounds like stone, whereas this sounds like metal. Alright, that's a better comparison. Will be over here. But, so that's metal. This is stone. So we have a few tasks left over from last stream, which is over here in this document, that we'll be working through before continuing to program the sound effect regions. So that's what we'll be primarily focusing on tonight. As for how's Heartwell's progress overall, I've those on the Discord server might have seen me post a meme about this, but I finally finished programming all of the animations for the cutscenes that will be in the demo. So where does that leave us in terms of when the demo is going to be released? Well, there's a bunch of miscellaneous tasks that I'll be working on off stream. Things like programming in some doors and keys, as well as adding remaining lore bits. But I'd say the biggest the biggest, not hurdles, but the biggest time sinks left before the demo is released right now are, number one, just implement all the remaining lore bits. So that'll take just a little bit of extra time to get it all together. Also, one second chat while I pull up the tile editor. All right, but as I was saying, the big hurdles left, well, not hurdles, but the time since left are, number one, implement all the remaining lore bits. So I think that would be, of the miscellaneous tasks left, the most time consuming, but not nearly as time consuming as programming the delete functions for the save files, or programming all the animations for the cutscenes. And after the lore bits, the next time consuming thing would be actually recording footage for a trailer and creating a Steam page. So yes, we are actually at that point where a major task that is on the horizon is actually creating the Steam page for the demo. So we are actually at that point, so that's really good to see. With that in mind, we'll pick up with these highlighted tasks to work on those and go from there. Hello, Copper Nicholson. Welcome. What's up? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Copper Nicholson. I hope you're all right. Where were we? All right. So first, move the upper edge of the sync regions up enough pixels to ensure the long horizontal regions still sound like walking over metal when the player is walking. Okay. So the regions we're interested in are the ones way over here. So there and there. Oh dear, well, Topper Nicholson, why don't you take some time to patch up that wound and try to, yeah, that's fine, Topper Nicholson. I hope you're able to patch up that wound. I hope you're able to get return to your car safely, get home safely. All right. Well, I completely understand if you're unable to attend tonight's stream. I hope I wish you all the best with resolving your current situation. In a pinch, I would say, if you don't have any supplies or stuff, a shirt can make a good temporary bandage from what I've found. But yeah, where was I? Okay, so let's find that code for the sound effects. I believe it's actually right here. So this general area. Let's take a look. Aha! This is what we are interested in. So these long lines of code, chat, are what determine where the metal sound effects play. Let's see which one that is. 33, 39. It's probably over here to the left somewhere. 941 to... Yep, as I thought. Alright. Copper Nicholson, if you don't feel like you can walk, you should seriously just call the paramedics at that point. But right now, your priority is trying to stay safe and trying to stay safe and get back safely. All right. Move upper edge of the sync regions. I'm a little confused by this note, so I also have to check this area first before we... Oh, so walking over Melwin... Oh, I think I understand. So I think right now, if the player is walking over the edge, it doesn't sound like Mel. I'll have to confirm that though. For those wondering why that happens, that's just the anti-stuffed code kicking into effect, pushing Dorothy out through impassable blocks back into the area. Now, why is Dorothy starting there? Dorothy is starting there because we are doing a run frame event, which means we are forcing the game to start at a specific frame, even though Dorothy should be spawning in a different frame near a altar of record. Why does that matter? Well, it's not going to affect anything in for someone playing this game normally, they would just spawn so basically if someone was here normally, it would they would just spawn near an altar of record. But because we're in dev mode, we effectively can force the game to start in a frame. Because of that, we're starting at the coordinates that would be where the altar of record is for that section. I think I'll turn off the music for a second so I can listen to... That's better. Alright, Topper, well, why don't you reach out to someone who's closer to where you're at so that they know that you're in a, that you're injured, and I wish you all the best with getting back home safely, Topper Nicholson. Now, what was I doing? Oh, yeah. So, we need to test out the area way over there. Might as well heal. One of the challenges with picking up with dev streams after 2 weeks. That had to be a little tricky to figure out exactly what you were doing, even with notes. But at least having the notes gives us an idea of where we left off. So let's just do that second chance. I mistimed that horribly. There we go. Oh, I see it. I see the problem. So right now, the way this is programmed, I think we also need another region here. Or we just need to expand the top portion here to extend outward. Yeah, I think that's what we'll have to do. Same's gonna be for over here. At least we got the rattle. Yeah, same over here. We have to send these out. Alright, I understand what they're doing. So, we have this. Another or condition. Oh, shit, wait, no, not that. We need to identify the regions, yep, like that, and we need to push those a bit to the left, so... Yeah, something like that, so do an extra 32 pixels to the left. This one? No, it's the other one. That'd be 4288. Alright, 4032 and 4320. So why am I saying those numbers out loud, chat? I'm saying those numbers out loud because I need to readjust the values down here. Put the music back on. Because they have to match in order to make sure that the code works properly. If we don't double up here, then what will happen is you do have a situation where you're having a sound effect play in an area that you don't want to play, just because you have the nothing to reset it to 0. Alright. What was the next thing? I'll try to do a couple of these tasks at once so we can test the multiple out over time. Move the right edge of each long horizontal metal region 1 pixel to the right. Right. Okay, so right, again, easy enough because we literally just saw those. So let's move those over. $67 and $44.55. 41.166. $4455. Okay. After that, Roll 1x1 stalls, move the rightmost edge 1 pixel to the left, and the leftmost edge 1 pixel to the left. I see, so they must have been, they both need to be shifted in one direction. Okay. Well, let's identify those 1x1 stalls. That one. No, but the one above it is. Yeah, okay. $41.86 to $41.85, $42.27, I'm sorry, yeah, this becomes $42.27. All right. The other one's going to be... That'll be this one? Yep, that's one. Alright, grab that, move it over. I think it was 41.86 and 44.74. So that's the ones we have to adjust. Okay. Let's see if we're moving over. Alright. For those just joining the stream now, I'm currently adjusting some regions where the metal sound effects play before we continue programming more sound effect zones. Yeah, so from what I'm seeing, after we program these metal sections, so that should be time to program, I believe, the wooden sections as well. Alright. Let's lower the region in the upper portion of the beds and add... Hello, Jay. Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. No, I understand what you mean. So it's evening where I'm at, but it's probably morning where you're at. Yep, time zones. Yeah, time zones be like that. They do. Yeah. So right now we're programming some sound effects regions. So basically, so that when Dorothy walks over a surface, if it's a metal surface, it will sound like metal, and if it's not a metal surface, it'll sound like walking over stone. So we're actually trying to fix some things from the previous dev stream, where there were some oddities that we have to adjust to make the regions line up correctly. The region in the upper portion of the right stone beds. I see what... So this is so that... For those who are wondering what that note's talking about, where it's this section here. So in order to make this portion sound like walking on a metal bed without the proper region, we actually need a separate rectangle zone defined here that moves a little bit inward, so that if a player's like hanging over the edge here, the stone edge here that nothing happens. That sounds correctly. Are there different walk speeds impacting the sounds? Great question, Jay. It actually has nothing to do with walking speed. So, at least right now, there's no surface that Dorothy walks more slowly over or more quickly over. She walks the same speed over any type of surface at the moment. But, so the way we actually have to define it for Fusion, rather than walk speeds, has to do with something like this. So basically, we're defining rectangular zones that's the sound effect applies, and assigning a variable, which we can then define for different sound effects. So if the variable is 1, for example, there's a line of code down here that says, okay, walking sound effect is 1, then the sound effect that plays is the metal surface. If it's 0, play the default surface, so stone. If it's 2, play the wood surface. And we essentially have these big lines of code to define each of these regions, since it all has to be tailor-made depending on what the environment looks like. Yeah, if this were a 3D game, we could simply say, okay, this particular object or tile set applies this sound effect, but since this is more of a 2D game and we're trying to save on performance, that results in having to do things like this for optimization purposes. I believe. Let's see if we can find the zone. Okay, so it's not that one. Yep, it's that one. All right. So what's happening here, chat, is if a player is like walking right around where my mouse cursor is, it's kind of hard to see here because of these invisible, these rectangles turn invisible when we actually are playing testing the game. The player will actually sound like they're walking over metal in this portion, even though this tile right here is a stone walkway. So because of that, we actually need to move the top of this region here down a bit, just to make sure that it doesn't impact that. And then we're going to create a separate region up here so that it's overhung correctly. What I mean by that is it needs to be just far enough to the left so that the player's action point will not overlap it when they're hanging over the edge here, but will overlap it when they're staying here. So that is literally a 1 pixel difference, and we'll have to basically finesse it until we get the right coordinates. But for now, we'll start with something like that. Just to get us started. We'll copy that, and we'll add another line, so that we can begin giving it what it needs to have. So it's 19. Around there. And essentially, we find the edge, and then we move it to the left about 6 pixels. That should, in theory, work. If it doesn't, we'll adjust accordingly. We'll also have to add a new zone. Well, we'll have to adjust the old zone down there and add a new one. I believe it's... no, not that one. That one, okay. The exact coordinate I adjusted it to was... it's 19. Grab that. There we go. This one, we actually don't need to adjust that region here. We just need to set this value to 0. So that resets the sound effect value. Alright. That's move the left ledge of the region to the left by 2 pixels. What? I'm confused by those notes. Oh, this is for all the beds. Out by 1 pixel. The left edge of the region to the left. Oh, this might be for... I have the same feeling this isn't for the beds, and it might actually be for something else. Yeah, it's probably for this. Metal grate. Move the left edge to the left by 2 pixels, and the right edge to the right. I think. Yeah, okay. With that, then we're ready to test chat. So, let's save that. Pause the music since we'll be listening to the area theme. Let's head on over. Took me a little bit to get over there, but that's fine. We'll slowly but surely make our way over. Yep. The other night, though, I did make some good progress on Heartwell by... There were some lines of dialogue that weren't rewarding wisdom at speed, but I was able to program that in now. And a fun thing about some dialogue in Heartwell is that there are a decent number of situations where either a lore bit or a line of dialogue wouldn't make sense if certain conditions are met. For example, there is a lore bit on the first floor of this dungeon where there's a wooden barricade that requires a specific amount of force to be able to break it. And Dorothy has a lore bit, so one of these things, that gives hints about that in a way that contextually makes sense with the game's lore. However, the thing about that is, in that lore bit, Dorothy wonders whether or not she's strong enough or resourceful enough to actually destroy the wooden barricade and move past it. But if the player was to destroy the wooden barricade before reading that lore bit, they would actually get an alternate line of dialogue because obviously the original line of dialogue no longer made sense. As a result, this is what I will call, moving forward, alternate dialogue. And you can think of alternate dialogue as sort of like secret little slight alterations to lore bits, or even lines of dialogue with other NPCs. Alright, looks like we got this all lined up now. That's again, our guns that work contextually with what the current situation is. As a result of that, some of these alternate lines of dialogue actually want to reward the player with more wisdom at speed, because actually meeting the conditions to see that alternate line of dialogue might require a bit more effort or delayed gratification on the player's part. And it's also not something a player will necessarily be able to figure out without actually seeing the lore bit first and wondering, like, could this potentially have alternate dialogue? Is there some situation that could arise where this dialogue would not make sense as it's currently written? And that's the case, it often has. Yep, so rewarding unconventional gameplay with alternate dialogue most days. Neat. Thanks, Jay. I figured it'd be a nice way to handle it, because it'll make it so that the players, in addition to looking for the lore bits, it's already, you have to get fairly close. Like, there's a lore bit down there, but you notice how, like, it just fades into existence only when you get fairly close to it. Like, if I was up here, you know, you can barely even see it. Like, it's there, but you can barely see it. If I go over here, now it's completely invisible. But now, just adding on top of that is like, oh, there's some alternate dialogue that might add a tiny bit, a tiny difference in lore, or maybe a new little bit of detail that you didn't have otherwise if you meet such certain conditions that are not spelled out for you in the game. So that'll definitely add, I hope, be one of many factors that adds to replayability in this game. But because of that, out here. Okay, 1 second. Nah, okay. But because of that, there was actually, with one of the, in the demo with someone that could be talked to, there is actually an alternate condition for some line of dialogue, and because of that, I had to use some special programming just to make sure that it rewarded an extra bit of XP if the player actually satisfies that condition, because to satisfy that condition is not, I would say is not trivial, just because it requires doing things in a very specific order, and then even if you've done those things in a specific order, happening to choose the correct dialogue option for the alternate dialogue to play. So that'll again reward the players with a little bit of extra wisdom XP for those who either meet the conditions accidentally or actually go out of their way to try and find them. Now, it's not like a massive amounts of extra wisdom XP, but I would say most, as an example, for a regular lore bit, most lore bits are worth 4 wisdom XP. But if I were to, oh, I forgot I would need to test the mouse sound effects back down here. But if I were to find an alternate lore bits, as I'll call it, the alternate lore bits would be worth 6 wisdom XP. Now, considering that the player, I have a bunch of wisdom XP here because I was testing things, but considering it's 40 wisdom XP to level up wisdom once, you know, it's a little bit, but if you do it a lot over time, it adds up for sure. But at the same time, it's also not such a massive boost that you really feel like you're missing out if you don't meet the alternate conditions. It's more so like a nice little extra boost. All right. Okay, I think we got the metal all lined up there. So what I'm doing, chat, is I'm trying to edge myself out to the very, very outer edge of here. Like, you notice, chat, like, Dorothy is literally 1 pixel on the edge of this, and it sounds fine. Now he walked off. It sounds totally normal, which is exactly what we want. Alright, so far so good. That's gonna have to be for that. Oh, by the way, Jay, I know you expressed an interest in playing some of the Trails games. Have you started to play any of them, or are you waiting for the next Steam sale? Because they have been a lot of fun. Let me double check this one over here as well. I think that's still accurate. All right, there we go. That'd be thorough. We should probably test down there too. So. Let's head on up. You have a bad habit of starting new games halfway through other ones, so you're finishing Octopath Traveler, but Trails from the Sky is not something on the list. Alright, sounds good. And hey, I enjoyed Octopath Traveler as well. How far have you gotten in Octopath, and who's your favorite traveler so far? I've actually heard from my friends that he played through Octopath Traveler 2, and he said it was like a massive improvement over the first one in nearly every single way, which is always good to hear. But I'm saying this as someone who enjoyed Octopath Traveler 1, but have not played Octopath Traveler 2. Octopath Traveler 1 was certainly a lot of fun as well. I think the things that definitely stood out to me the most about Octopath Traveler were, I think its combat system's top-notch. I think I liked the sort of panoramic, almost pixel art, storybook art style they go for. And obviously the music is absolutely phenomenal, not just from a composing standpoint, but also from a game design standpoint, especially with like how they have the sort of the looping chords that they do at like the start of like intense scenes that can transition perfectly into and seamlessly into a boss battle theme. Like that's all like so clever like music design. You'll have Alpha Instinct compatibility in combat, but Cyrus' personality more. Alright, that's fair. I remember when I played Octopath Traveler, I did not actually beat the super boss at the end of the game. And there's a reason for that, because when I was playing Octopath Traveler offline, this was before my days of being a Twitch streamer, I actually decided to do a little challenge run. So the challenge was essentially, well, let me ask you a question, Jay. Are you familiar with the Lone Traveler achievement? It's the achievement in Octopath where you essentially have to complete one of the 8 travelers' stories from start to finish using only a single traveler. Hence why it's called the Lone Traveler, since you are literally a party of one at that point. Well, what I decided to do, and this was my first playthrough of Octopath Traveler, I decided to basically do Lone Traveler for every single character. And the idea was that if I start a character, I have to finish them. So that meant, like, besides doing the obvious Lone Traveler thing for the first character I picked, that also means, like, the next time I get another character, it's like, alright, well, now I'm stuck with that character, and I can only use that singular character. And it actually lines up with the game's mechanics, because the game does not actually let you switch out, like, your first party member until you actually complete their story. So the end result was I got, let's just say, very familiar with the game's mechanics and how brutal some of the boss fights can be. Oh, I think we need to adjust that a bit more. It's like 1 pixel off. Now, you might be asking, alright, Antomicx, is it possible to actually complete, like, to basically, as I'll call it, solo path traveler all 8 characters? The answer is yes, but it's very, very difficult. Have you completed all the travelers? Chapter 2 for each character is like 25 levels higher than Chapter 1. That was a lot of grinding. Oh, it was a ton of grinding. Like, but it wasn't just grinding either. Like, it's one thing to grind and get some higher stats, but what ended up mattering a lot more was, in the long run, was like equipment and classes. Because without those, like, equipment, classes, and like, I'm forgetting what they're called, like talents or something, like think of them like the passive perks you swap out. Those mattered an enormous amount. Like, the runs would not have been possible without like optimizing them. And the thing was, I had to swap those out and alter my strategies depending on the boss fights. So the character I chose at the start was Tressa, because she has fairly balanced stats and some really good passive abilities for self-sustain, especially with rest and sidestep. Those were amazing. But I remember vividly that for every single one of the chapter bosses, I used a different class. So obviously the start was the merchant class, but then the second boss I used the warrior class, the third boss I used the thief class, and then finally for the her final boss I ended up using the apothecary class. And then, all for very different reasons, but just because as they all had various skills that made sense for what I needed to do for a particular boss fight. But on top of that, I also needed to make sure to have like the right equipment and stuff, because some of them, like, one piece of advice I can give you for Octopath Traveler is if a passive item says greatly boost something versus simply boost something, it's a massive difference. For example, in Hanet's in one of Hanet's boss fights, there's a boss battle where the boss likes to do tons of like enormously strong fire attacks. All right. Now there are two, as far as I know, there are two like amulets or something in the game that reduce fire damage. One of them, it just says reduces fire damage, and the other one says greatly reduces fire damage. Do you want to guess what the difference is between the amulet that simply says reduces fire damage and the amulet that says greatly reduces fire damage? Just take a wild guess as to how much. 60%. Good guess. So the regular reduction of fire damage, I think, was something like maybe like 30 or 50%, which, you know, is fine. But the greatly boost was like literally 99%, and I'm not even joking. Like, it was laughable how ridiculous the fire reduction was. Like, it turned what was once a scary attack completely one-shot my health bar to just being like someone hits you with a wet noodle. It's like a night and day difference. So if you see anything that says greatly reduces damage, take it. Like, seriously, take it. It's good. It's stupidly good. Like, however, the problem with that, though, is that you can only have 2 amulets, so that made some of the super bosses out of reach. But believe it or not, like, because there are 4 super bosses and they named it like the, you know, those ultra classes, I was actually able to defeat 2 of them. And I proceeded to use the heck out of those ultra classes and their abilities throughout much of the rest of the solo path run, because they're just really, really good. I mean, it's hard to go wrong with some of the abilities from Rune Lord and Sorcerer, for example. And I would have loved to get some of the abilities from like the other super classes, but their super bosses were just too hard with one character. And a part of that has to do with, like, I think, like, the one that seemed like it might be feasible but was just barely out of reach was the Stargazer. And I think that's just because they deal heavy elemental damage with 3 different elemental damage types, and thus you can't just get 2 greatly reduces amulets to tank through them. And the other prawn is the War Master, and you're not being the War Master with one person. Like, I feel like you need to have like 99 revitalizing jams and be constantly spamming them to have any chance to defeat the War Master, because the War Masters has so much defense. They have a lot of their attacks just multi-hits, and it's all physical damage. There really isn't too many good ways to reduce that. It's like, I even think they might go multiple times in the turn order because they're just so fast. So yeah, War Master ain't happening. Stargazer, maybe, but I wasn't able to do it. But the other 2, you know, Sorcerer and Rune Lord, it required a lot of clever planning around the Apothecary class. But seriously, like, if you're trying to do solo path anything, the best class for most situations is the best. Well, I think the best character is Tressa, because Tressa can. Let's see. So we're going to move this 1 pixel to the left, because Tressa has a lot of balanced stats and things like that. I actually think the best general purpose class is the Apothecary, just because their ability to heal, like, they heal single targets for enormous amounts, and because you're one person, that automatically makes them the best healing class. And the amount of sustain you can get out of an Apothecary's, like, self-heal is just ridiculous. Like, it makes it so that if you know a heavy attack is coming, you know that the best thing you can do is just boost that Apothecary heal so that you can get back up to full and just keep trying to tank through hits and use poison to your best advantage. And Anyway, I know I'm getting a bit off topic here. Okay. But point is, Octopath Traveler's combat system is amazing, and I like the fact that the equipment actually does have like those kinds of massive differences. Like that suddenly it makes it like if I see it greatly boost anything, I'm automatically like I want it. I don't care what I have to do to get it. I want it. Like, even if I only use it for like 1 or 2 bosses, I still want it. But yeah, what's Apothecary for any debuffs also be true. That's very useful. Very, very useful. But I think like the self-heal for a solo path run especially is super, super useful. Though if you are going to just want to get the Lone Traveler treatment, just start with Tressa. Like Tressa's like far and away the best option for being a trying to do everything by themselves. Now, as for relative difficulty, you might be saying, okay, Antomicx, how would you rank like the difficulty of, like, what was the hardest Traveler? In my opinion, the hardest Traveler to do solo, which means you're doing their entire story from start to finish with only that character, is Primrose. It's Primrose because Primrose is primarily a buffing character. She does not have a lot of health. She does not have a lot of resistances. In other words, Primrose can get destroyed by almost anything, even with like different start classes selected, even with different abilities. And in addition, she is the only Traveler with a finale that has a final boss with 2 phases. And I don't mean 2 phases in the same battle, I mean 2 completely different battles back to back that you have to win. So both of those reasons make her by far the most daunting character to solo path. Like, I remember distinctively grinding for hours just to get a little bit extra XP to get Primrose's stats a little bit higher. Outside the city for where her final boss was, just because it was that ridiculously hard. I think I moved this one a bit too far to the right. Yeah, I should move that one in 2 pencils. Let's just try this one. Yeah, I've gone a bit overboard with the rating here. Yeah. Oh yeah, something else I forgot about why, you know, Trust is the obvious choice for a solo path run. It's just because of her, you know, her path scale being the merchant. She can buy stuff that no one else would be able to be acquired. And there's some really good items that you can only get from buying from using her skill to like buy them for specific NPCs. Do you assume the camera in Heartwell or is it fixed? Great question. The camera is fixed, and that is by design. So the idea is that the camera's fixed so that you can't like peer it's zoomed out enough so that it makes ranged combat viable, and it makes it so that you can actually see a bit of what's ahead, but it's also not so zoomed out that you can really see, like, have a big picture of everything, so it still feels like you're exploring through these sprawling maps. Which I like. It definitely makes the area seem a lot more thought-provoking in that respect. But yeah, so for what I'm seeing, we have I think we just need to move these 4 pixels in the opposite direction, and then we should be all right. I think I overcorrected there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure crosscode's kind of the same way. It doesn't really let you zoom out. Though, to be fair, crosscode does let you like push the camera in a different direction if you stand still, but something like that would take more, you know, time to program, and I don't really think it makes sense for the kind of game that Heartwell is, being a Souls-like. Yeah, let's make some adjustments. Three, 5, 5, 6, 3, 6, 4, 1. And the other one's the new region, which I think is there. Yep. Just one pixel to the left. There we go. All right, chat. Let's go investigate. So we're just gonna walk our way back up to the area over here. No! That was almost a disaster. The rattlesnakes. They almost got us. They almost cornered us, but we wouldn't let them. Yep. I think one of the sort of skill gaps in Heartwell, it's a bit different from even a game like Elden Ring. Granted, Elden Ring does let you jump, but the jump you can do in Elden Ring usually isn't that helpful for stepping past enemies or evading things, except for very specific attacks. In Heartwell, like, jumping is not just a platforming thing. It's also a way to avoid many different attacks and reposition in a somewhat safe manner. But also, as you'll notice, costs a ton of stamina. So you really have to commit to when you go for a jump, and especially in an area where there's lots of enemies and you're just trying to get through it quickly. Like, jumping can, in theory, let you get through the area faster, but consequently, if you, let's say you misjudge where you're jumping, or you land in an inopportune spot and you don't have enough stamina to jump it down or to sprint, all of a sudden you found yourself in a very sticky situation, which I think adds to kind of one of the more higher skill gap challenges. All right. Okay. Good. Sounds like stone. Perfect. I think we got that all fixed. That one's all good to go. Let's test the grain over here. I have a feeling it's probably still not quite right, but we'll try it out and see where we're at. How's it still metal? Yeah, we still need to bring this one in a bit, I think. Probably like 1 or 2 bits, so let's try this side. Yeah, I'd say another 2 pixels inward. All right. I should probably do the next time I'm over there is just pull the lever so that we can just walk up there. Yeah, all the green nets as you see here, chat, will be invisible in the full demo release, as those are just the impassable walls, as you can see. So there's a lot more of them here, like right here, there'd be blocks just like this. They're just invisible. The only reason these are visible so that I can see the ones that haven't moved. So we'll make our way through this section of the tutorial dungeon and conduct those tests. I think we're only going to be testing metal here. That is not necessarily the case, because as you can see, there's also a decent amount of wooden sections that we'll want to adjust as well. Well, not adjust, actually program. So let's open up the shortcut. Get slightly faster next time. Now, we'll test down. Oh my god. Better. Okay, that makes sense. Just shift ever so slightly. Yep. Aha! I think we got the right side all lined up. Let's try the left side. I don't know, chat, what do you think? Do you think that makes sense, or I think we should shift it ever so slightly to the right? Well, might as well open this door. It's easier to get back here. Yeah, I think it still needs to be shifted slightly to the right, but we're almost there. Let's try 60. Just to test out that region. Now the shortcut door is open, we can walk straight there. Alright. That makes sense. Now we're going to move slightly to the left. So if you're wondering, chat, why I'm trying to basically tap the key right now, I'm trying to see whether or not Dorothy's foot lines up with the metal grain. I think it's just ever so slightly too far out. So we'll get one more pixel in, and then I think we'll be good to go. Alrighty. One last test, and then assuming the test goes well, we'll take a break and then come back and work on the wooden areas. Wait, what am I doing this one for? And literally just walked up the shortcut area. Right, moment of truth. Okay. Almost there. Okay, I think we got it. Yay! It works. Alright, so that wraps up the loose ends from last stream. So, I am going to take a quick break, chat. When we come back, we will program. We will identify and program the wooden regions in this part of the tutorial dungeon. Regions. All right, time for you to head out. See ya, and good luck to sound design. All right, sounds good. Thanks for dropping by, JA, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. First step other regions that need to be. And with that, I will be taking a quick break, chat. So don't worry, guys. I will be right back. hey chat, welcome back everyone. Well, I'm glad that you got home safe, Copper Nicholson, and I wish you all the best with conducting first aid. As for where we left off, we finished doing some miscellaneous stuff from last stream, so all these metal portions are now programmed. That's a big accomplishment. So there's a lot of metal in that lower floor. Now we're going to do the same thing, but with the wooden areas. So, very first thing we have to do is actually identify all the wooden areas. So, chat, for this we're actually not going to be looking in Fusion, but in fact, actually looking in the tile editor, because that'll make it a lot easier to see where things are. Essentially, we're looking for wood. All right, you see a wooden plank somewhere, you see like a wooden platform, that needs to be identified. So, the areas. Oh, chat, this is our jam. This is our jam. What's this song called again? Erosion by Drummer Boy. All right. Yeah, I really like this song. It has just such a nice rising feel to it. Perfect ambient music. Da, 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 da. Now, as all that being said, just the way this song has like a nice ambient rising feel to it, kind of makes me think of like almost the levels from Final Ninja Zero, which was a Flash game from Nitrome way back in the day. I always loved like just, especially what was so cool about that games those games backdrops were top notch. Like they had like rolling backgrounds where you see like a skyscraper on a waterfront in the background, like a cyber age really futuristic skyscraper, and like the first half of the game takes place at night and you see like all these searchlights moving in the back area near that skyscraper, and then in like the second half of the game it's like during daybreak, so you actually see like the sun's rising, just a nice orangey glow. It's beautiful. But anyway, the song's trying to make me think of that. Not because necessarily we're music that sounds like that in Final Fantasy Zero, but it's more so just the feel that the song gives. It's kind of like that sort of sun's rising over the nice quiet bay and listening off of the glass of like tall buildings. Gives me that kind of feel. Anyway, so wooden sections. First things first, we have top of a lone cabinet. And then room filled with rattlesnakes and one per battle. Now snakes. One per rattle. Alright, next area. It'd be wise to do something like this so we zoom out a bit and can more easily. Yeah, something that can help those of you who are watching this and are developers, doing something like this with your windows. Yes, it does make it hard to see like a large area, but sometimes this can be helpful so that you can kind of see what you're looking at while you're typing. So you have like a little notepad over here on like the left or right, and then your main workspace over here. If you have a multi-monitor setup, this is much easier to do, but since I'm working with one monitor, this is kind of the compromise I go for, is just having just enough space to see where my typing space and having the rest before looking at what I need to in whichever application I happen to be using. Yep, in this particular case, we have here. So, long row of cabinets in the upper left hallway. And the hydroponics Now, the good news is so far all the wooden areas we've seen have been simple rectangles. Those are much easier to program than things like this, where it's like an L shape or a squiggly line. Those squiggly lines and L shapes are definitely trickier, because you have to use more programming for this thing. Now, granted, there are some fairly large wooden structures here, but I actually think these will be anyway, what I was saying, yeah. So, while these are technically on wooden platforms, I actually think it's going to be better if I create some kind of dirt sound effect for even these areas, because they're more so like planting areas. So I did some kind of dirt sound effect. I think that sounds a lot better. And plus, especially for the areas after the demo, there will be plenty of areas that will have like needs like some kind of dirt sound effect anyway, so it'll be something to work on. But at least on stream, I'll work primarily on the wooden areas that are still here. Speaking of wooden areas that are still here, exhibit. So, these clearly are wooden platforms. So let's make that what we can. Three long vertical wooden platforms. That's on top in the training area. Filled with weight racks. Of course, the wooden stalls in the shower room. That's also good to identify these areas. So I refer to these because this is such a massive map. So if I were to zoom out for a second, it's like you can see, like I'm zooming out, and it's like we still can't even see the full fit map in view. That's better. Yeah, so this massive area is the lower floor of the tutorial dungeon. Because there's so much going on here, I find it easiest to break it apart into 3 separate regions, just as a way of thinking about. So this is primarily due to how the way the dungeon's designed. It's progressed to start on either the left or right and work your way towards the center. So essentially anything before this gate, like over here to the right, we call this the right path. And this gate would be like where it tends to the central path. So the central path will be anything that's basically between this gate and this gate. So this stuff right here. And the left path is anything that's before this gate. So that would be everything over here. So right now we're going to be focusing our attention on identifying all the wooden regions in the left path. And in fact, actually looking at it from a highly zoomed out perspective like this makes it a lot easier to see the wooden areas, just because those are all brownish color, or I guess it's more of a light brownish color. But point being, this unironically is a helpful way to look at things. So that being in mind, so we'll have the left path. Tap that over. We'll have center path. We'll have right path. For once, my monologuing has paid off. I actually wait. These areas down here, I was thinking those might have been wood, but I actually think they're metal there, right? Yeah, okay, those are actually metal, because while they're made of wood, they have a metal grate that's holding them together, so I think the metal makes more sense there. But that's way too zoomed out. Ironically, I actually think the center path has no wooden platforms, so that'll make that makes the center path super easy. The right path, on the other hand, definitely has a couple of wooden platforms. So we have the pantry area. So we'll have 4 wooden shelves in the pantry. So that's actually the right path. So the center path literally has no wooden areas to be programmed, so that's convenient. Cabinet. Pantry. Then over here we have stalls in the first bathroom, stalls in the second bathroom, then we have the wooden bookshelves in the barracks. Oh, congratulations on winning the bid, Copper Nicholson. Sounds like it was a good use of eBay. Yeah, that's the thing about like auctions and bidding. It's like sometimes you can get a great deal, other times it's you end up paying more than the original, the original price. So it can be a bit bad sometimes. But if you find the right auctions and come in at the right time, you can sometimes get some good savings. So glad it worked out. Let's see. Wooden beds in the barracks. We'll break this up into 3 sections. So left set of beds. Center set of beds. Rightmost bed. Right, and I think, chat, that's all the wooden areas. And while we're at, since we're looking at this from a high level anyway, might as well write down a task to create dirt footsteps sound effects. Identify sound effects to play. Okay. And right path. So right now, chat, even though we don't have the sound effects created yet, I am making sure that we at least know where it will need to be programmed eventually. And like the one areas, dirt is also very, very, very hyper specific. In this case, it's literally all just concentrated here. Like literally, like this one, the Hydroponics Cavern is the only place in this dungeon that has dirt. At least that I'm remembering. Oh, KJ Sparks got a Transformers figure that I like. That's good. Nice. All right. Center and right path. None. All right, for the left path, we have, I only see 4 regions, and thankfully they're all rectangles. Yeah. All right. Soundwave sounds vaguely familiar. Blaster, I have no idea. Yeah, I'm unfortunately not the most familiar with all the different Transformers and things like that. Has been. I used to watch it a couple episodes here and there when I was like super young, but now I don't really remember. So left path, yeah. Upper. So we have 2 grounds level fields. We're growing pumpkins / cabbages. Large horizontal stats of growing areas. It's just that the only thing I know about Soundwave is that the name sounds familiar, so I feel like there's probably a decent chance that Soundwave was one of the Transformers that came up in one of the Michael Bay films, or perhaps one of the episodes I happened to watch when I was younger. But that's about it. It's not like... You probably have to go into a bit more detail about the character to see if it starts ringing any bells or if I'm just misremembering. There was actually a Simpsons episode, or like a Simpsons skit, where some of the objects in Springfield ended up becoming Transformers. And I remember distinctly there was like, I think it was like an alarm clock or something that transformed, and it said like Melody. It called themselves Melody, but gave themselves like the deepest possible voice. It was hilarious. It's like, Melody. Melody. Let's see what. Let's see. Large heart. Fields. On vertical wood. Horizontal. Elevations. Alright. Well, all that being said, chat, we have now identified all of the different remaining sound effect regions for the defs. So, thankfully, it seems that the metal sound effects were actually the biggest lift in terms of what needed to be programmed. Because the remaining stuff isn't, well, except for maybe this spot, the rest of the stuff isn't nearly so complex. Hello, Grector. Thanks for dropping by. How's it going? Welcome, welcome. We're programmed sound effect regions. Copper Nicholson says, Soundwave is Metron's communications and espionage officer. He famously turns into a boombot and has a small Italian of cassette tapes that turn to various drones to do his billing. Interesting. All right. Yeah, that's not ringing any bells, unfortunately, Copper Nicholson, but thanks for letting me know. You're good. That's good to hear, Grector. How's everyone? I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, Grector. So I've been making some great progress with Heartwell. Just the other day, in fact, I programmed some more Wisdom at Speed stuff, which means I'm getting, again, it's like now I'm just working on a bunch of miscellaneous tasks before the demo release. So it's really looking like, you know, a couple weeks to a little over a month before the demo releases. Like, legitimately, Dr. Like, the 2 biggest time sinks I see left are, number 1, implementing the remaining lore bits for the demo, and number 2 is actually like creating a trailer and a Steam page. Yes, we are literally like at that point where that's one of the tasks in my like to-do list that's getting very close to coming up. So I'm glad, Rektor. I'm glad. It's it's definitely been quite a journey getting to this point. But the mere fact that I can actually see with some level of confidence when that might happen, it's like that is it is exciting. I agree. And even the stuff we're doing right here, I mean, ultimately what I'm showing you right here on dev streams is a stretch goal, like, having all these different sound effects being played for the different types of floors in this area. But again, I want to go that extra mile for this game, because this is I'm putting my heart and soul into this game. Anyway, so with that being said, it is now time to program some wooden areas, and we'll start with an easy one, which is this spot right here. Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of games, any new progress with your game, Gretfor? And also, how are things at work? I feel like it's been a little bit since we last chatted, so just want to catch up. You've been procrastinating your name forever these days. Alright, well, I mean, sometimes it can just be busy. Copper says, sadly doesn't own a Soundwave action figure, but Blaster is the Alba equivalent of the character. He has the same alt mode. Oh, I see, so they both have spies. Interesting. I haven't been feeling the inspiration lately. Alright. Well, I mean, are things at least good with work, Rektor? Do you have stuff you do outside of work as well, just whether hobbies or exercise, stuff like that? Because that's all important too. It's all about keeping things in a balance. Now, where were we? Oh, yeah. So I do have a line of code here for sections here. However, this line of code was copied from a previous frame, which means these regions are not accurate. That's actually a good thing for us, because it means we can very easily start adapting some areas. And already I can see this. Meh. Well, adapt that over. We're just been a bit tumultuous, to be honest. We're at the very start of a new project, which means we have tons of meetings every single day. I see. Alright. So, let me ask you this, Grektor, because I have certainly had moments where, like, work's been super busy, and I get home and I just want to go to sleep, or I'm just really exhausted. Alright, well, when you're at work, Rektor, do you find yourself, like, are you pretty good at, like, planning ahead? Do you have, like, a list of, like, to-do tasks? Like, even for me, when I'm at work, I find it very helpful to just take a couple minutes, write out which tasks I want to work on, and trying to estimate how long they'll each take. And then I identify, like, a specific time frame for that. Oh, you do actually? Alright, that's good, that's very helpful. As I keep adding to whenever the new tasks come up. Alright, but like, let's say, it's a specific day and you're like, okay, what am I doing today? Do you identify, like, okay, at 9 a.m. I'm going to work on this, and then at 10 a.m. we'll work on that, and okay, good, I'm glad. Alright, then you're doing all the right stuff. It's just, sometimes work can be busy. What about after work? Do you do the same sort of stuff? Oh, not specific socials like that. Alright, well, that would definitely be one piece of advice I'd give you, Rektor, is I've been in the exact same boat before, where it's like, sometimes it can be overwhelming, like, what do I do? There's so many things to do, I have such a long list. At that point, you essentially, it's worth the time investment to take, like, 5 to 10 minutes to look through the tasks and be like, okay, here's the things I need to prioritize, and at this specific time, or this specific time period, I'm going to work on this. Afterward, you turn off the work computer, turn on your own computer, and start thinking about what you're going to do with the limited time you get at night. Alright, well, how much, from my own perspective, Rektor, how many hours do you think how many hours of sleep do you get each night, and how many hours, I guess, between finishing work and going to bed do you have? Because, for me, I find that after work, I can sometimes be a bit exhausted, and I usually try to save that for my time to exercise, eat dinner, and sleep. And if I am able to do something else for Heartwell or something like that, that's great, but that's more of a bonus. And then what I do is I actually go to bed, you know, relatively early so I can wake up relatively early and do whatever stuff I'd want to do for Heartwell or for the High on Time video or anything like that. Early in the morning where I'm like super fresh, feeling nice, brain's focused. And I do all that before I go to work. I find that to be a nice balance. Like, the thing is, it's like, it's literally the same amount. I get in literally about the same amount of time I would have done if I had just done it after work and went to bed later. But the difference is I feel I'm way more productive in the morning as a result. Because I'm, you know, doing it when I just get out of bed as opposed to after a long day at work. And again, it's kind of fascinating how the human body can work sometimes. So it's like I'm literally getting the same amount of. Oh, hey, Raptor. No, I was just saying, like, I find it helpful also too. What exactly do I do before work? Well, stuff like what you're seeing here. So basically, what happens, Raptor, is instead of what I used to do way back when, where it's like I felt like I wasn't really getting as much done as I would have liked, where I would be like trying to stay up till like 10 or 11 at night and then going to bed and then going straight to work. That wasn't really helpful, neither for my body nor for actually getting things done. So what I started doing instead is I would reserve after work time for working out, eating dinner, and if I have the energy to do something fun, I do it. If not, I go to bed. So that way I wake up an extra hour or two earlier than I normally would have before. Oh yeah, that's what I do. Exactly, Raptor. So I work on Heartwell before I go to work. So basically, I go to bed early, I wake up super early, and then I use my mornings as my time to work on my game. So much more productive. Just telling you flat out, it's way more productive. Because now you're not having like all the stuff from like the day resting on your mind, you're not exhausted. Instead, you're fully rested, you've had breakfast, and you just have time to just be. And it's really nice. It's a nice way to start the day. Match up between work and bed, it's about 5 hours. Starts if I fail to go to the gym. Alright, I'm assuming you have to, and do you have, are you getting at least 8 hours of sleep every night, Grekwork? Oh, yep, I go to the gym. I'll try, but many different things keep waking me up. Alright, well then what I would say, Grekor, is if the way things currently are, that you're just, you get home from work and then you're just super exhausted, that can be your body telling you that it needs the rest. As a result, might I suggest trying, instead of having like 6 hours after work where you're doing stuff, maybe instead have like 3 or even 2. Then just go to bed super early so you can wake up super early and do stuff in the morning. It's worth a try. Not everyone's a morning person, but I've definitely found it's helped a lot, especially with my progress with Heartwell. I've been a lot more consistent ever since I started doing that. Alright. Well, then perhaps trying to go to bed a little earlier might actually be beneficial. Not just for the sake of your video game, but also just for the sake of, if you're going to bed earlier anyway, that also means if you really need the extra half hour to hour of rest because you had a rather restless night, you have that option, Whereas if you're going to bed a bit later and it's like, tight margins for your sleep schedule, that can definitely impact things. Alrighty. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. If that helps, it helps. If not, well, then I'm just rambling. But yeah, actually, it's something I just realized. I need to make sure. Did I program that pipe in that section to have the sound effects? Let's find out. If it's not be anywhere 20,000. Thanks for the advice. No problem, Drakor. No problem. The 1900 regions be this. It would be that. And I did. Alright. Good to know. That means the vertical has to be at 1031. Got it. Yeah. You appreciate your desire to help and share a bit of stuff that works for you that might not be universally applicable. Fair enough. And yeah, if you can leave even a tiny thing that can help, then I'm happy to have shared what I could. There we go. So we know that the vertical has to start at 1031 so as not to overlap with the other region. The rest can be over there, it's to the right. Yeah. All right. Well, basic first aid, Copper, is to just soap and water works wonders, I find. It's very simple, but gets the job done. Like, whenever I've needed to do first aid, like maybe I was hiking or something, and I fall down, you know, and scrape my knee or something, what I tend to do is, as soon as I get to any place that has soap and water, I run hot water over it, preferably. Then I run soap over it. Then I run hot water over it again to rinse. And that usually, you know, that's usually a good starting point. Yep. If you have rubbing alcohol from a first aid kit, that can help too. But honestly, like, I've very rarely ever had to use rubbing alcohol. I've mostly been able to be just fine with soap and water, because if you think about how soap works, it's very effective at getting dirt out of places. And with you know, if you're injured, like, that's ultimately what you want, is to, you know, clean your wounds of any dirt so that you're not getting any, like, bacteria or things like that into your bloodstream. Okay, so let's do those regions. So put a little star there just as a reminder. Three long vertical and platforms with mats on top. Okay, I know where that is. 95. Oh, there's nobody way down here somewhere. Right, no, it's nobody way up here. It's 379. Aha! I see it. Anyway, I hope that helps, Chopper. Oh, whoops. 1800. Yep. By the way, Grekor, what games are you playing lately? I haven't been able to continue my Elden Ring weapon lock as of recently, just because I've been focusing so much on Heartwell, but I've still been making some good progress with it. I mean, at this point, it's becoming clear that I want to actually try and defeat every boss in Limgrave using only shields, just to give myself a bit of a buffer for some weapons that have just stats that are too high to use at level 1. Laven exhaustively replaying Dark Souls 3. Alright, that's good. Dark Souls 3 is a fun game. Any fun runs as of late? Or are you just trying to get to New Game Plus 7 at this point? Basically doing 2 different runs. Alright. Which would those be, Grepler? Ones with daggers basically only allowed to attack using daggers. Alright, a dagger run. Those can be tricky, but interesting. What about the other run, Druckler? Oh, hey Copper, if you need to sign off early tonight, which is perfectly understandable. Thanks for dropping by, though. I wish you all the best with your first date, and I hope you have a good rest of your night as well. Director says, the other one you decided the theme around being a sorcerer, but it's more of a theme run than a challenge run. You have to always be dressed in a way that makes sense for a wizard to be dressed. You're not allowed to level up strength nor dex. You're only allowed to equip callus and daggers in your weapon slots. Alright, that also makes sense. Not like a challenge run, but most of the mad run. Hey, the mad runs can be fun too. Like, you know, there's plenty of YouTubers who just do like basically they make a build around character or like a person, like that's, you know, it's obviously not meant to be the hardest thing in the world. It's just meant to be, you know, something silly or engaging just for that particular kind of run. In Elden Ring, for example, I remember seeing someone do a run where they basically tried to play as the play as a Crucible Knight, and that leads to some pretty interesting things, because it's like, alright, well, a lot of the Crucible Knight weapons can't be gotten for a while, and it also meant using the Crucible Knight incantations. So that's definitely interesting to see. And then there was someone who tried to do a run of playing as Patches, and that's actually interesting because Patches likes to cheat a lot, so they got to use a wide variety of the perfumes and other types of items. But otherwise, their main weapons were just that, you know, that Twin Tower shield and the short spear. Yeah, Patches run. And once you actually try to play as Patches, you realize, like, yeah, maybe it's okay, but it's not like the best build in the world. Yeah, so we need to move this build over, not this build, this area over here by 160. That becomes 1850. And this becomes 1926. Alright, 1926. Yeah, and like I said before, like if I were just to do a run just for fun, and not just like a challenge. Well, actually, to be fair, I find challenge runs fun, but if I were just playing Elden Ring to play Elden Ring, as I said before, I'm playing as a power stancing, grave scythe sort of character that also can make a decent amount of usage of incantations and bows. Yeah, power stancing Elden Ring sounds so fun. It is, but there's, you know, it comes with drawbacks too. Like, I consider power stancing to be high risk, high reward, because on the one hand, you know, double damage, like, that's amazing, but on the other hand, stamina, like, you basically have no stamina now. Like, if you're not a power stance, you have to commit to the fact that you're also using twice the amount of stamina, and then some. So, I mean, that's usually not as big of a problem for me, since I tend to level up endurance a lot more than any other stat. But for someone who doesn't level that up, it means you really have to pace yourself to actually get the most of it. Yeah. I'll say this, like, one of the things that Dark Souls 2 definitely did right was power stancing. Just even the idea of tower stancing, it just opens up so many possibilities, and I'm glad that they brought back an Elden Ring, because power stancing, at least to my knowledge, was not a thing in Dark Souls 3. I think that's a shame, because it was a really, really, really cool, interesting. It definitely had a lot of depth to the game, to Dark Souls 2. and it also adds depth to Elden Ring. In fact, in Elden Ring, I think power stance is even more accessible than it was in Dark Souls 2. Because in Dark Souls 2, to power stance, you actually need to have, like, I think 50% of... You had to have, like, 150% of whatever the stat requirements were for the weapons you were dual wielding to be able to do it. So, like, let's say I had, 2 straight swords, but they each required 10 base strength to wield. If you actually wanted a power stance, you would need to have 15 base strength in order to do that. Otherwise, you would just be dual wielding them. But if you had enough to power stance, then you could go for the power stance moveset. In Elden Ring, it's just the only thing you need to power stance is 2 weapons of the same weapon class, and as long as you meet the requirements for both of them, you can power stance. So definitely a lot more accessible in that regard. Let's see, this needs to be moved over 96, so 1944. 32. Oh, right, that needs to be moved over once more. I think that would be 1990. Yep. What I'm doing in my head right now, chat, is I'm calculating in my head the tiles I need to move it down. So right now, here, for example, if I move this one tile down, this one tile up, it should be in the correct areas. At least that's the hope. So 1798, 1912. Perfect. Well, perfect until we test it and have to make adjustments, but at least in the ballpark. Next, wound stalls in the shower room. Okay, so that'll take a little bit more finessing to get correct. So first thing we need to identify is actually where we program the metal areas, since those will be part of our bounds. And this one will be towards the top. So 14, 17, okay. Okay, it's probably one of these. Oh, that's actually the section up there. Although, looking at it in the map editor, yeah. This one might actually, will probably need some adjusting, but that's alright. Maybe that sits to the left, so 34. And that one needs moved over as well. Let's go with 19. Yep, that should be, we're just 1410. That should be plenty to work with. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, I think I forgot to ask Rutger. So I'm pretty sure you already have Elden Ring. So have you decided that you're just having more fun playing Dark Souls 3 at the moment, or is it Elden Ring just something you want to come back to later? What's your thoughts on that? $14.02. Elden Ring just doesn't run on a short period. All right, that's fair. That's fair. Wanted to work on You're working on building your new machine with a friend. Oh, awesome, Rektor! Want to share the deets of your new machine? Getting really close now. The last two things you need are the CPU and GPU. Awesome! True, that's expensive, but they're also very important. Alright, no worries, Rektor. 1802 and 1752. 1802 and 1406. There we go. That's better. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. Programming some nines of areas. I think it'll actually be useful to grab the line of code from up here, since that'll help a bit. So we want that one. We'll bring it down here. One, two, three, four, five, six. Okay. Well, no, wrong line. No, is that the right lines? Yeah, that's the right lines. I know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, why did we do that, chat? We did that so that we would know what these coordinates are here for this line, because that line we must not cross. We're close to 1752, which means we actually need to start at 1753. Actually, no, we could start 1752 and then move downward. You have to line this up and move it 6 pixels to the left. Okay, hopefully that all lines up. Yeah, I think for these sections where it's like metal and wood right next to each other in a very confined space, it'll be helpful to grab the previous coordinates and adjust them. We'll go from there. Not sure, or Copper Nicholson. Maybe you can ask Repgor when he comes back. I know I'm trying to remember how Repgor liked to play, and I think in Dark Souls 3, Repgor enjoyed using like the hammer weapon classes. So not sure how that would necessarily translate, but I would just ask Repgor when he comes back. Alright, that's a metal platform, so that doesn't need programming. But that horizontal section, sorry, not horizontal, the vertical section does. That's true, it might have been a Melian playthrough, and if that was the case, then I'm, misremembering, that's my bad. Alright, so then I also realized, well, we do need that line of code for this thing down here. So, that line, since I don't think that line is anything correct. Alright. However, I realized that this first line of code, looked up here. Oh, not that one, sorry. The second line of code. I think we might actually need to shift that up one. I think it goes to 1030. I said 1030, not 103 minus. Oh, welcome back, Rector. That was right. Okay, so yeah, you did do a million inspired character first playthrough. That's it. The irony is, actually, right now I'm doing another character inspired, well, sort of character inspired playthrough. So the Elden Ring weapon lock has a Tio-like character. So Tau P Toil, which is an anagram of Tio Plateau. Yep, Tau P Toil. I even have the I've even decided to, in some cases, to forgo headgear that would be better statistically, just so I can see like the blue pigtails to be reminiscent of Tio, just for funsies. Well, you say that, Drakor, but to be fair, I am in the early game, and at the same time, since I have to fight every boss, that does mean it's been taking a while. Like, keep in mind, Drakor, like there were like, I think I'm up to like maybe, I'll have to check. I'm somewhere between 20 or 30 hours in, and like I haven't even finished all the bosses in Limgrave, and that's just because I've been using shields. Because I feel like I should probably be using shields for as far as I can, since they are easily the worst weapons in the game. Barring like a couple of shields that actually do have some viable like weapon arts or stat stuff. Shields are horrible. Like they're just horrible across the board. Worse range than fists, the attack speed of hammers, and worse damage than even like daggers or short swords or anything like that. The only redeeming quality for a shield attack is the stance damage, and that's about it. Yeah, Rekor, you do not realize how many enemies have hitboxes that are smaller than their collision boxes until you have until you're using a weapon class whose range is so pitiful that you actually can't hit bosses even if you're right in front of them, just because their collision boxes are just big enough to be outside of their hitboxes with the pathetic range that shields have. So I remember like even finding the Erdtree avatars with like the Erdtree avatar in the Weeping Peninsula with a shield was awful, not because the Erdtree avatars was a particularly hard boss, but because like the whole front of its body, the hitbox extends just far enough out to where you can't actually hit the Erdtree avatar even if you're standing right next to it with a shield, which is just ridiculous. So it means you actually have to spend some time like either going for some risky jump attacks that may or may not work, or trying to go for jump attacks like basically trying to flank wherever you can to get to the sides where the hitbox just barely edges out the collision boss. But it does mean I've learned a lot of things about Elden Ring as a result. I like what you just read, Rekor. Because of this challenge run, I learned. Well, no, but Rekor, it's a rune level 1 challenge run on top of being a weapon lock, so I can't level up. There is no leveling up. Yep, the Weeping Peninsula is finished. I only have a couple bosses left in Limgrave. Yes, it's a rune level 1 weapon lock, Rekor. That's part of the challenge. Not just a pure weapon lock, it's a rune level 1 weapon lock, which has made it very interesting. I'll let you know it's been very interesting. Let me put it this way, Rekor. I learned how to beat Margit and Godric with shields. That, my friend, was an experience. Okay? Like, I learned things about those bosses that I never would have dreamed of even needing to consider. Because of... Yeah, no worries, Drakor, no worries. Yep, Margit and Godric, I beat them both with shields. Like, Godric especially was quite difficult with shields, but it ended up being a lot of fun by the end of it. Because it required really trying to understand the attack pattern. So something I realized is that with the bow only challenge run, I by the time I reached Godric, I understood the moveset of the bows enough to really, you know, position myself correctly against Godric's attacks. And Godric has many long wind-up attacks that are melee attacks that, you know, are easy to punish with a ranged weapon. Why didn't you leave the shields to do the more, Well, I am Grektor, but again, because, you know, it's a Limbrave boss, and Godric and Margaret, you know, obviously they're more difficult than, like, the Erdtree Burial Watchdogs. But by that same token, you know, they also have less health than the later demigods, and I figured, you know, if I can, I should, and, well, here we are. Like, you know, when very far down the line I make a video about it, I'm definitely going to, you know, I'll definitely go over some of the strats I used against those bosses, because it was like, like, when you actually see some of the stuff I had to do, it actually made the fights a lot more visceral and engaging, because you really can't have no reach, and you have to fight like you have no reach, which means you're almost always, like, right up in the face of the boss battle. Which means you're also always in, like, the most danger, because you literally have to be right next to the boss to hit them, and even then it might not work because they're of the whole hitbox issue. But yeah, in terms of the boss that gave me the most trouble so far, it was the Lost Hero of Zamor. It might be a bit of a weird boss to bring up, but what made that boss so hard was the fairly rapid attacks coupled with the innate frostbite buildup in the second phase made that boss fight brutal to do with shields, especially since every time I tried to go for, like, an attack, it would always just, like, backstep, and I'd end up whiffing and wasting a lot of stamina. So I think I died like 13 times to the Lost Heroes and more trying to fight it with a shield. But eventually, I think the strategy that worked was making good use of, I think a very powerful Ash of War for shields called Holy Round that lets you recover HP and give additional damage negation while staying in, like, a specific area. And these are things, like, I would not have learned had I not been doing the challenge run. So the one benefit of this weapon law challenge run is, like, it's really forcing me to appreciate all the intricacies of Elden Ring. I love it. Anyway, I'm guessing that's how you're feeling about the daggers as well, Rektor. Like, if you're doing a dagger only run, I have to imagine you're trying to learn to parry, right? I feel like in a dagger only run, like, that would be the run to learn how to parry. Where you can. No, you're not learning parry, actually. Alright, then in that case, I'm guessing, are you doing a lot on stats build up then? Because the problem with daggers is that they're very, very, very reliant on critical hits. Alright, then kind of what's your goal then? Are you just going to try and, like, defuse it with some kind of stats effects and take advantage of the fast attack stat? Because I remember even, like, in Dark Souls 1, like, if the dagger I was using did not have innate bleed buildup, that would have been painful. Okay. Yeah, definitely, in that case, make sure you get yourself a dagger with a stats build up like Frostbite or Bleed or something like that. That would definitely help. Oh yeah, I forgot about those. I guess that works. Yeah, because paired weapons are really effective. Because you're getting multiple hits in. If there's any way you can infuse them with, like, a blood infusion or something like that, like either a blood infusion or, like, a frostbite infusion, like, that would be, like, probably extremely effective. Oh, with the Pawnless Left Eye? Clever. Clever. Pawnless Left Eye is one of those talismans where it's like, either you have the right weapons to make use of it, or you don't, and there's no in between. If you use a slower weapon with that I keep saying talisman, with that range, it just won't work. Yeah. Oh, sounds like you're having fun then, Drekort. Yo, you beat the Nameless Taint with daggers only? That's awesome, dude. I just think you're pretty close to the end of the run, or do you still have the DLC to go through? Well, one of the benefits of daggers is if you learn how to use them well, you're going to learn how to play pretty aggressively. And that can be a beneficial skill to learn, especially against... You always see Soul Thunder before going to the DLCs. Alright, so I guess where are you at in the dagger only challenge run? At this point, like, what's left? I see. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Redcore, if we're talking about Dark Souls 2, isn't like the Burnt Ivory Cane a much more fitting for a final boss than, say, like, Nashandra or Aldea are? Like, if I were to think of, like, what's left of the base game is basically Dragon Slayer, Armor, Princess Soul Thunder, yeah. Yeah, because in my mind, when I think of, like, what would be, like, an epic final boss fight, the Burnt Ivory Cane or the Fume Knight. I mean, to be fair, the Fume Knight is easily the hardest boss in Dark Souls 2, but... you got the Princess, I got you. I think in terms of, like, if I could just pick one fight to say, like, this should have been the final boss of Dark Souls 2, it would easily be the Ivory Cane, because it's just, like, it has the atmosphere of it all, it has, you know, the epic fight to even get the chance to fight the Ivory Cane, by having to fight those knights first, but you can also recruit knights before that, which is actually, you know, if you think about what a final boss should do, a final boss should test everything you learned up to this point. I think no other boss in Dark Souls 2 does that better than the Burnt Ivory Cane, because essentially it tests, the boss simultaneously tests your exploration to see whether or not you explore to get all the knights to help you. It tests your ability to handle ganks and, you know, stronger enemies, so against the Ivory Knights you have to face. And you have to do all that to even get the right to fight the Ivory King. And then the Ivory King tests your actual boss fight skills. So, yeah. You have that to work with. But if we want to go for, like, the Millennia of Dark Souls 2, that's easily the Fume Knight. Just that regeneration is ridiculous. Like, the regeneration of the Fume Knight. Yeah, so in my opinion, like, I see the Fume Knight as the Millennia of Dark Souls 2, and, like, the Ivory Cane as, like, the true final boss, the Slave Knight Gale, if you will. Some are good, but none are great. Looking Glass Knight? True, Drekor, true. But I mean, like, the Looking Glass Knight's, you know, a fight. I just think I remember really liking that one. Like, there are many clever things about that boss fight. For one, the shield was truly, like, unbeatable. Like that shield, like, has so much resistance. Like, there was no way around it. Like, the shield just was literally a wall. Like, there's that sincere. The fact that it was in, like, a rainy environment and he had lightning attacks, like, that was such a clever use of, like, using gameplay to teach the player, like, you know, lightning in a wet area. Made sense. And also the fact that he could summon those minions. Like, I thought that was all really, really, really clever. Especially, and add on to the fact that you could actually, the minions that could be summoned could actually be a player invader was, like, also just really, really cool. You like the Rune Sentinels, you like that. Smolder Demon is strong. Let me think, what other kinds of bosses? So, I always think of the Looking Glass Knight as, like, what's a good Dark Souls 2 boss? There's the Looking Glass Knights. The thing is, Dark Souls 2 has a lot of bosses, so right now I'm running through my head what all the bosses are. Just give me a second while I try to think of some other good ones. Alright, here's a hot take. I think the Fletzel Sentry is a great boss for a mid-boss. And I say that because the Fletzel Sentry is not the hardest boss in the world. It's not meant to be. It's like a mid-boss. But consider the fact that it has, you know, it has two different attack counters depending on which side of it you're fighting. And the fact that if you let the fight go on for too long, the water in the arena rises to the point of slowing you down. Like, to me, I think that's actually... To me, in my opinion, I think that's actually I mean, to be fair, Rector, Dark Souls 2 just has a run back problem in general, so I'm trying to analyze the bosses by just the merit of their fights, not the run back. Like, if we're including the run back, then that automatically makes, that automatically knocks Sir Alone down a few notches, just because, well, Sir Alone's an amazing boss fight, the run back is horrible. But what I like about Plexal Sentry is it forces you to understand positioning enough to essentially fight the side of the sentry that you feel makes more sense for your build. And it also tries to gently encourage you to play more aggressively, because if you don't, you'll get slowed down later. True, Drekor, true. Let's see what else. I'd also say, Drekor, I would give another honorable mention to the Dutesteer Freja. Like, for all the complaints about Dark Souls 2 just having a bunch of humanoid boss fights, the Dutesteer Freja does not have that problem. And I like, in addition to just the scariness of the arachnophobia aspect of it, but also just the spectacle of it, just find this gigantic armored enemy that can fire lasers. It's not the hardest boss in the world, but I don't think it needs to be. I think for where it is of the game, it makes perfect sense. It's around the same difficulty as like a Quaylad fight. But on top of that, like, the fact that it also has its spider minions to keep you on your toes, but the arena is large enough to where it never feels like oppressive that you have the spiders, and add on to that the fact that you can choose to bring a torch to keep the smaller spiders at bay. Like, to me, it's like all those are all like so many clever little things to make the fight have a lot more depth to it. True. But I mean, like, even without the torch cheese, it's still, like, the spiders aren't horrible, but they do add enough to the list. And I'll add also, I like the Executioner Chariot. I know it's a gimmick boss, but you gotta admit, it's a pretty clever gimmick boss, isn't it? Actually having to run around a pretty large arena while avoiding skeletons, carefully maneuvering your way through to start that. It's a puzzle boss, but you gotta admit, it's a fun puzzle boss. Because it actually forces you to take into account positioning, and when you finally... I mean, it also has one of my favorite boss runner's weapons being, the shield crossbow. Like, we have never seen anything like it before or since, have we? Like, a crossbow that gives you some damage resistance when you're attacking. Like, it's such a cool idea! Like, it's a really cool idea. Like, I'm shocked that Elden Ring doesn't have something like that, you know? I vaguely remember that, Drekor. But I think with Dark Souls 2, I think one of the problems with its, well, not necessarily problems, but just maybe one of the reasons why it's not as fondly remembered is the fact that it is a bit bloated in terms of the number of bosses it has, especially since there's a bunch of, like, reskin bosses or, like, repeat bosses. Yep, I heard the Dark Lord is amazing too, but to actually fight the Dark Lurker, the setup to actually get there is pretty tricky. I'm getting completely distracted. I'm just realizing that's okay. Sometimes streams be like that. Okay, so we did that, which means we're now on wooden shelves in the pantry. No worries, Drekor. It's good to be able to chat with everyone once in a while. I mean, I had a pretty long chat with some other people on Twitch at the last live stream. It was a blast. But anyway, I think the problem is, like, all the great bosses in Dark Souls 2, I'm talking like the base game of Dark Souls 2, they kind of get overshadowed by just the bloats of, like, the repeat bosses and things, and the dank bosses and things like that. So, like, for every Dutesteer Freja and Executioner Chariot, you have, like, what, 2 Dragon Rider fights? And... other things to that effect. And I would also like to point out, just as a fun fact, so Wampha recently did a a very fun parody of Top Gear, where he basically did 3 different playthroughs as each of the characters, and like did AI voiceovers to make a pretty hilarious, almost like a Top Gear episode, but in a Souls game. And the game they chose to do it on was Dark Souls 2. So, while even YAMP constantly makes so much, you know, playful jokes about wanting to uninstall Dark Souls 2, he still keeps coming back to it, you know? And I think that just speaks to, like, the level of replayability that Dark Souls 2 has. Like, I think of the 3 Souls, you know, the Dark Souls trilogy, Dark Souls 2 has the most replayability. Which is saying something, because Dark Souls 2 definitely has some, you know, some design choices, like adaptability and stuff, that is, you know, just weird or just annoying. And yet, it's also, there's so much to do in it. And like, if you... I think Dark Souls 2 is the worst of the 3 to play through your first time, but it's the best of the 3 to replay over and over again, just because there's so much to do, and so many things you can do out of order. Yeah, the amount of possible builds is staggering. I agree, It's like... Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, it's like, even me recognizing just how painful it was to start with only, like, 1 Estus Flask, and have everything constantly kicking my butt in the first playthrough, I can't deny that Majula has a charm to it. Like, you know, Majula has a distinct charm to it, an air of mystery to it that makes it so much fun to just come back to. Yeah, Majula is, yeah, the little hub area is fine. And I'm not saying Majula just as in, like, the hub area. I mean, Majula in general, I'm sorry, I should be saying Drain Lake in general has such a charm to it. So many varied environments as well. There's almost a part of me that wishes, like, someone would remake Dark Souls 2 to like, get rid of the glaring faults while keeping all the stuff that's amazing in it. Like, get rid of, like, the elevators that make no sense. Like, I'm looking at you, you know, Firekeep. And maybe make it so that adaptability doesn't, or make it a bit more forgiving. Then all of a sudden Dark Souls 2 becomes the best of the original Souls series, except for Dark Souls 1 still has the superior level design. But to be fair, a Dark Souls 2 remake would be amazing, I agree. But to be fair though, Dark Souls 2 already has Scholar of the First Sin, which isn't a remake, just more so like a Persona 5 Royale kind of thing. Look at the best Dark Souls game. Listen, nothing beats the Dark Souls 1 level design, okay? Nothing can beat that. But besides that, I generally would agree. Like, there's, like, Dark Souls 2 has so much that it really is the dark horse of the Souls trilogy. Because, like, there's so much that's weird about it. There's also so much that's good about it, and it's like, you know, it's like where, like your opinion of Dark Souls 2 depends greatly on how much the annoying things annoy you and how much the good stuff entices you. Oh, I agree. Like, that excitement of, like, when I saw that connected up to Firelink Shrine, my mind just exploded. I was like, level design can be like that? I'm like, that's amazing. Like, now I want to know more. Yeah, Dark Souls 2 definitely nails that epic feel. I remember, like, there's even some moments where the camera, like, specifically pans in a bit to give you a bit more tension. Like, in Dark Souls 2, like, the bridge across, like, the dragon area to reach the, you know, the castle, like that rope bridge, and how, like, it zooms in and your character staggers in the wind as, like, the bridge goes back and forth. Yeah, there's no, like, literal danger there, but it just adds so much immersion to it. That bridge. Like, no other Souls game does that. And also, I think the bonfire aesthetic system as an idea was brilliant. Like, having the ability to essentially force an area to go up a New Game Plus level so that you can respawn the items there and get to fight the bosses again. Brilliant. Like, really, really brilliant. Like, I love that. And yet they never brought it back. Like, they really should have brought it back. Like, that would have been so cool. Like, being able to New Game Plus a specific area to, like, fight a boss over and over again that you really like. Or, yeah. I mean, the Dark Souls 2 speedrun involves literally using bonfire sets to fight the Rotten over and over again to bypass that central area, which is really, really cool. This is starting from a death stream to a Dark Souls 2 death stream. Okay. Where were we? Cabinets in the pantry, right. Alright, so that would be over here. Right down. 3170. Oh, there it is. Like, you know what? You defeated no great souls, but your soul memory is so high it'd be pointless to expect you to do it now, so just go. I don't think of it like that. I think of it more so as like they actually wanted, like there was a desire to give the players a choice to how to progress. And I love that. Like, in Dark Souls 1, you don't get that choice. Like, as much as I love Dark Souls 1, you still have to ring the 2 bells, you still have to defeat the Iron Golem, you still end up in, you know, Anor Londo. Like, there's no alternate way to get to Anor Londo without glitches, you know? And yet, in Dark Souls 2, they gave you that choice. It's like, if you want to get past the Shrine of Winter, you don't have, like, you can go on this grand adventure, find 4 great souls, or you could just, you know, get 500,000, like, it's either 500,000 or 1,000,000 souls with, you know, by any means necessary. Or that's grinding over and over again, or using bonfire sets to fight a boss over and over again. It's like really, 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 really cool. I just wish that the second half of the game wasn't so obtuse in, like, its progression and stuff. Yep. Very true, very true, Drekor, very true. And you know what's kind of ironic about that, Drekor? Heartwell is kind of the same way. Because you can... Because, you know, there's more than one way to leave the tutorial dungeon, and both of the bosses in the tutorial dungeon are optional, that literally means that there is more, like, the potential first boss you face in Heartwell might not even be any of the bosses in the demo. And I think that's amazing. Like, it could end up being... Yep, very true, Drekor, very true. But, like, I think the way Heartwell's currently designed, like, I think there are potentially, I want to say, 6 different bosses that could be quote-unquote your first boss. Which gets me excited. No, I'm trying to say this in the most non-spoilery way possible. And the reason that is, Drekor, is just because of the way this tutorial dungeon is designed. Because it has 3 different exits, and 2 of the exits do not require defeating any boss, and both of the bosses in the tutorial dungeon are optional, means that, you know, in theory, you know, you can complete this tutorial dungeon in the demo without finding a single boss, and then your first boss would be one of the bosses that would be after, you know, you start in one of the regions. So... Now, to be fair, not all those are first bosses. Obviously, the bosses in the tutorial dungeon are meant to be first bosses, but like in, you know, like in Dark Souls 2, it's the same sort of deal. They expect the first boss to be the last giant, but we all know that doesn't always happen. You know, you might go fight the old Dragon Slayer first, who knows? You might fight the Rotten first, who knows? Anyway. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the most non-spoiler way I can put it for Heartwell. And I'll also say this. Once the Heartwell demo is out, you will get to see me do a lot more level design and, like, enemy design programming and stuff on stream. And even some more, like, boss design stuff on stream. Because there are a whole ton of, there are a ton of bosses, like, post-Heartwell demo that I would consider to be stuff that isn't really spoilery. And what I mean by that is, like, I mean, to be fair, yeah, you think the stream was meant to not only add some replayability, but also give you the chance to back off from hard areas and try something else for a while if need be. True, there's that aspect as well. But like with the bosses past the tutorial dungeon in Heartwell, just because of the way the world is structured with 3, you know, different regions and having no one set path that you have to take to progress through the story, it means that in theory all the bosses are optional, in a sense. But I'm also designing the story to be similar to Fallout New Vegas in the sense that there is one general plot line in the center that connects it all back to. But like how you get to like those specific points on that plot line, as well as, you know, the endings you have are dependent on how you go through the game and your decisions along the way, decisions at the end, things like that. Since I find that generally seems to be the best balance point for having a branching narrative story without making the scope get so ridiculous that it just ends up destroying itself. Yeah, it's definitely gonna be fun. I think we're going to move this down here. Yeah. I'm also genuinely interested to see what people's opinions are of the difficulty of the tutorial dungeon, because I want it to be fair, but I don't want it to necessarily be easy. I want this to be obviously the easiest dungeon in the game, but let's put my discipline result. Alright, thanks, Greffor. I try my best. But I'd be very curious to hear like the feedback about the difficulty of this game, because again, don't want it to be too easy, even though this is the tutorial dungeon, but I also don't want it to be like a wall of difficulty. It's like, man, I just can't get past this, you know? Like, I think I've struck a good balance with it for both of the bosses in this tutorial dungeon, as well as just the areas, but again, that'll depend on player feedback. Granted, this will probably be harder than most of the tutorial dungeons for, you know, other games in the Soul series by virtue of being significantly longer. You're probably going to absolutely own your every boss first try. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, Raptor. You played a bunch of Soul games, so I mean, these being tutorial bosses and, you know, stuff like that, I think and you played even Crossroads, so I think you'll probably be fine. But like for someone who either hasn't played Crosscode before or someone who might be new to Souls games, hopefully the balance is all good. Also, I appreciate the Dorothy emotes. The Dorothy emotes are cute, I agree. KK Sparks did an amazing job with them. Gregor was spamming emotes Copper Nicholson as a way to identify that he plans to absolutely own every boss on his first try. Alright, Gregor, you know what that means? I'm going to expect to see like you upload like the first no-hit run of Heartwell. Yeah, sorry, on some comments. Yeah, so the plan once the Heartwell demo is released is to focus a lot on like the level design and the enemy design and stuff like that. Basically anything that would be on stream would be stuff that would occur before, I'll say, a key midpoint in the game's a key point in the game's story. So all that stuff would be stuff I do on stream. Fair enough, Rick, fair enough. But after everything that would occur after that at point in the story though would be stuff I would do off stream for obvious reasons, spoilers and things like that. But there's a massive chunk of content that's accessible before that point, so that'll definitely take quite a bit of time, but also be a lot of fun. And you guys will get to see things along the way, and depending on how much interest there is, there might even be some voting on like which region we work on a particular night, because there are 3 of them. And they're all going to take similar amounts of time to set up, so it'll be interesting to see. gonna do that. And move this down 10. Oh, sorry, up 10. Okay, we'll try that. Oh yeah, I saw some of those videos you posted of your cats as well, Raptor. Your cats are adorable. They're absolutely adorable. They are the best brothers. Alright. Up next, stalls in the first bathroom. Alright. Chat, I think this will be a good place to take our second break, so I'm going to take a quick break, then we'll come back to try and hopefully pick up with this right here to try and at least identify the regions, then we can adjust it accordingly. I can confirm that, Dreadboard. Dorothy would love to be able to pet the cats. But yeah, I think I'll take a quick break and then we'll come on back. So don't turn our I'll be right back. Alright, chat, welcome back. Oh, sorry, alright, chat. Can't believe I said cat. I was reading the chat and saw that everyone was talking about cats. I said, alright, cat. Alrighty, chat. So, I am noticing myself fading a bit. Yes, alrighty, cat. Is that really how me now? Alrighty, cat. Welcome back. No, okay. Oh. We had capital token. I mean... what would that even be? But like, what would the expression be? That's the thing. Like, what would we need? We need like specific. Because the thing is, we already have Smud Dorothy, so it would like attack Dorothy. It would just be the Smud Dorothy, but with ears at that point, or would it be something else? I do not remember this, Dr. Nicholson. But we already have Smud Dorothy, though. Oh, you mean more the determined face, not like the three mouth. All right. Well, if you guys can give me some decent direction as to what the expression should be, then I might consider it. I think we still have one emote slot left, so it's not completely out of the realm. Not Smud. The face she needs. I have to punch my way through those things. Oh, you mean like sort of like that smiling determination face? Possibly. Something to consider for sure. Yeah. So anyway, before I got off. Yeah, but before I got off topic though, what I think I'll do, the wooden bookshelves and the barracks will require quite a bit of programming. So I think what we'll do is we'll program the stalls and the bathrooms. We'll test everything out once, and we'll just highlight what needs change. And then we'll call it a night from there. What? Copper Nicholson? Sorry, it's just... No, don't apologize, Raptor. It's great to be able to chat with y'all. Oh, no worries. But like I was saying, I'll just quickly be trying to program in these last bits of the stalls. And well, actually, aren't there a couple of stalls that... 7. Alright, let's see how quickly we can get through these. Oh, that's one emblem is? It's sticking one's tongue out. I don't know. Okay, so I have this one. Alright, fair enough, Report. Number 26. Yeah, I often find that Discord's refusing to start. It actually can be useful to use the task manager to like force close Discord and try reopening it. Sometimes, like I've had to do that sometimes, and that seems to work. 1336. No. Where was it? Yeah, I can definitely feel myself fading, chat, because I'm trying to remember, like, where is the coordinates for these areas? Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Hold on. Alright, there it is. Grab that. Put this down here. Put that over there. Over to the right, there we go. Da, da, da. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Guess we want that one. Okey-doke. This should suffice. Move this over here, move that over there. And then we take the hypotenuse of an isosceles triangle. And we raise everything to the TOA coefficient and divide by phi. The end result is Ellie McDowell. Antomicx, what are you talking about? Huh? Oh, nothing, Tio. I'm just... What am I talking about? It sounded like you were trying to do equations with different characters. First from Trails of Cold Steel and Trails from Zero. To prevent the power by Toa, yes. We cannot prevent to be raised to the Toa power. So Reen times Toa equals success. Laura plus Phi equals victory. And Milliam plus Ren equals a disaster waiting to happen. Minus Milliam, divide by alpha, no. No. It's always minus the Milliam, isn't it? Speaking of the Milliams, I have to wonder when in Trails from Zero we're going to encounter the Ren again, because it's been a little bit. I grant we're in the middle of chapter 3, but it's like we see Ren for like all of like maybe 2 minutes, and it's like obvious that she's the Milliam of the game. It's like, how does she fit into everything? Like, we know she's some Ouroboros Enforcer, but beyond that, apply my exponent of Sarah. No, not Sarah. Oh yes, of course, Sarah. You can't have equations without Sarah. Actually, Sarah, we absolutely can. How come? Because you're never around to teach anything. You got a point there. But okay, so how about this? Trails of Cold Steel characters, but as mathematical numbers or expressions. I feel like I feel like Milliam would be pi, and the reason why Milliam would be pi, besides enjoying eating things, is the fact that the thing about pi is it's literally an infinite number. Like, you can never find the exact values. So whenever you multiply anything by pi, it just causes complete chaos, but all that chaos creates a circle, which means there's some order in the chaos. Or to quote Reen Schwarzer, if the Academy... So it's probably something like the concept of derivatives because she's very useful and reliable. True, derivatives are very useful and reliable. That's a good point. Yeah, if Toa's derivatives, I think that would make Reen... What's the opposite of derivative? Why am I forgetting it? Reen would probably be integrals in that case, since they go hand in hand. Yeah, integrals. Let's see. Laura and Fee would have to be stuff that's like brute forcing things. So like Laura would have to be like the most brute force something, so it's probably gonna be... What's the most brute force mathematical equation I can think of? I really have to think that through. Oh, I know. Laura would be exponents, and Fee would literally be, like, the square roots or things like that, so, like... I forget what the terminology for that is. But if Laura is, like, raise something to the nth power, Fee is raise it to the 1 over nth power. You like calculating nth roots? Yes. Okay, and we've already established that Milliam is pi. So if Milliam is pi, what would Alphen be? What was the most inappropriate, like, something or other in math? Alphen is the number 69. No! No. Also, one has to wonder, what has our, one also has to wonder, like, how late is it to the fact that we're trying to basically assign mathematical equations to various historical steel characters? To be fair, it's fun trying to think about this stuff. It's very, very random. Okay, Elliot's, hear me out, chat. Yeah, we're all nerds. Yeah, nerds, as Emily will put it. Homer Simpson would yell, that's true. Hear me out, chat. Elliot is fractions. And the reason he's fractions is just music. So like 4/4 time, 3/4 time, things like that. Elliot would definitely be fractions. Just the concept of a fraction. What else do we got? Eustace and Machias are division and multiplication respectively. Because they never agree on anything. And when it comes to like mathematical things, they're always like against each other. I find it very hard to think of something that's more opposite than multiplication and division. And also, of course, we go into like addition and subtraction, but still. Altina would be the diagonalization argument against to prove that the set of reals is larger. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Altina is like some complex proof and Milliam's just pi. Like, Altina would hate Milliam. Copper Nicholson, the joke is that in Trails of Cold Steel, Altina is like a very logical and deep sort of convoluted character, whereas Billiam is just plain old chaos. And they're like exact opposites. So the exact opposite of Pi, which is just chaos, is a very, very, very complicated but well thought out proof. So explain to me why it's a bizarre. What makes it so bizarre, Rekor? Because you say it's like the diagonalization argument that the set of reals is larger than the set of naturals. So me not being as deeply invested in like the more intricacies of like more advanced mathematical proofs, what is like the basis of this proof and what makes it so weird despite the consistent logic? All right. Oh, and while you're typing that backdoor, I have to say, I already know what Duvalie would be. Duvalie would be limits. Now, why would Duvalie be limits? Because she's always trying to approach a goal of hers, but she can never attain it. So, like, yeah, she's always trying to stop Class 7. She gets really close, but she never quite do it. That's why she'd be limits. What is the limit as Duvalie approaches Class 7? The answer is disappointment. Anyway, you're saying, Grekor, about your what was it? Basically it goes as follows. So anyway, the data argument goes as follows. Suppose we could assign one unique natural number for every real number. Okay, just as a refresher, what's a natural number, real number? Are we saying like 1.1 would be 2 and 1.2 would be 3? Is that what you're getting at, Drekor? A non-negative integer. All right. I think I understand. So like 1.1 would be some value, 1.2 would be another whole number, and so on and so forth, and it has to be positive. Anyway, take every real number with an infinite decimal representation and sort them according to their sign natural. Alright. I'm picturing that in my head. Alright, continue. Essentially like indexing an array, but for values. More specifically, actually take every real number between 0 and 1 with an infinite decimal representation. Okay. Continue. Basically, numbers of the form 0.4. Okay, yeah, I can picture that. All right. All right, go on, Rekor. We use that order to define another real number. All right. The real number starts with 0 points and has infinite decimal places after the decimal point. Alright. Alright, no problem, Copper Nicholson. Thanks for dropping by, and hope you have an amazing rest of your night. No. Well, okay. The definition is for every spot on n on the list, if the nth element on the list has a 0 on its nth decimal digit, then the nth digit of this new number is 1. Otherwise, the nth digit of this new number is 0. By definition, this number is real. You know, that does make sense, but at the same time, I'm thinking it through, I'm like, I don't know why that's so confusing, but it is. But also, by definition, it cannot be part of the list, because if it were, it would lead to a contradiction, because it wouldn't be infinite then, right? Because if it has a 0 in the nth digit, then by definition, it can go further to the edge. I think I understand. Is that it? Huh. How does someone even like to me, it always baffles me how people can come up with like these really complicated mathematical proofs. Well, it's not complicated, but it's like it's just so ruthlessly logical, and it's like it makes sense when you finally see it all laid out. But like, how do you even come up to like that, reach that point, you know? Oh, so it's a paradox, is that it? But it's a paradox that still has some accuracy, some logic to it that can provide some mathematical pattern. Not paradox, contradiction. Alright. So it's contradiction, what does that mean? Does that help the proof, or is it used to defy something? Yeah, like to all the mathematicians and the philosophers who like developed like advanced math from just raw logic, that have massive respect for them. This proof answer is assume a natural enumeration of reals as possible. Get that list of numbers from 0 to 1. Use that list to find another number. Okay. That number is not enumerated, therefore the enumeration is incomplete. Okay. I think I'm following. So, why is it called the diagonal then? Is it because if you like line the numbers up like one after the other, it seems like the zeros and ones are moving diagonally? Like as you're going down? Is that why it's called the diagonal theorem? First digit of the new number is based on the first digit of the first number. The second digit of the new number is based on the second digit of the second number. Wow. I think my mind just exploded. I'm just trying to... I see, so that's why it's called the diagonals. My brain. My brain. You're eventually on the Wikipedia page. Okay, thanks for letting me know about that, Rekor. It's definitely a mathematical proof I don't remember hearing about before. Or not mathematical proof, just a... Or is that mathematical proof, or just a theorem, or... Well, the point is, it's an interesting bit of mathematical logic I would have not even considered thinking about before you brought it up. That's wild, though, isn't it? So, Rekor, I know there's tons of... It's an argument used to prove that there is no objective function from naturals to reals. Oh, no bijective function, which is equivalent to saying that reals are not enumerable. Oh, and thus, by definition, this is how you define what's a real number and what's a natural number. Is that the idea? Oh. Well, yeah, that makes sense, because logically, there has to be, right? But that's like a way to actually proof it out mathematically that, yeah, this is why it has to be. Not just saying, like, yeah, it makes sense common sense-wise, and more so like, well, why is that common sense? It's common sense because of this. I see. Well, clever, though. Very clever. It's a good way to define whether or not it falls into one category or the other as well. As opposed to the logic of, yes, if it has a decimal point, it's a real number as opposed to a natural number. That does beg the question, though, the concept of infinity and zero has always fascinated me, because, like you're pointing out, Rekor, like two infinite sets could be of different sizes, which sounds ridiculous. A more math-savvy person than me would probably cringe at my attempt to explain this on Twitch. Though, to be fair, Rekor, I'm definitely less math-savvy than you, and you're making some amount of sense, so that's good. And the point is that this is definitely something new I would not have known otherwise, so thanks for sharing that information, Rekor. It's always good to learn something new every day, in my opinion. If possible. But yeah, like I was saying, the concept of like zero and infinity have always fascinated me, because zero being absolutely nothing, but also nothing being something, that's wild. And then conversely, infinite, how do you define infinite? Because as you're pointing out, infinite isn't necessarily a tangible thing. It's like, well, it's everything. Well, but what is everything? Like, could this everything be less than that everything? Okay. Yeah, I'd ask the question, Rekor, like, is there any particular reason you brought up this proof as opposed to any of the other hundreds or thousands of proofs that are out there? Is it just because it really is wild when you think about, like, the diagonal nature of it? According to Cantor, there's countable infinity, those sets that have a bijection with naturals, and uncountable infinity, sets that do not have a bijection with naturals. But we as humans still don't know how to count to infinity, Rekor. That's the problem. It's a head of a mindfuck, just like Altina is mysterious. I see. Also, please excuse my language. I read that before I caught myself there, but my apologies, Chip. Yeah, she's solitary, mysterious, and logical. True, that is Altina. Very accurate. Very, very true. Other trails of told steel characters we would want to assign mathematical properties. Let's see. 90, 48, 48, 46. Let's see here. Using capital and overall interchangeable here. Alright, I'm guessing they're not actually interchangeable though. I wonder how close I'm getting to the action limit in this event. Not there yet. I feel like I'll get there eventually. 1409. There are, as far as you know, in this context. Alright. Fair enough. That's loyal, friendly, and a family kind of dies, so maybe something like... Would that make Dias Edition, then? Or are you thinking of something else? Yeah, friendly, family-oriented, loyal. Would that be like parentheses? I don't know. The other mathematical concepts running through my head of the other Trails characters. Anyway, to express numerical expressions, like with operation symbols in between numbers and variables. Fair. What about Emma, though? As Emma's very smart, but she also can be very mysterious, and sometimes she even hides things. So, I'm trying to think, like, what's a math concept that doesn't really tell you the whole story? Because I remember, like, in Trails of Cold Steel 1, she tried very, very hard not to reveal that she was some kind of powerful magic user. Well, I mean, sorry, some sort of witch or part of the Hetson clan. What would that be? Like someone who's smart but mysterious and sometimes tries to hide things. A zero knowledge proof. Alright, what's an example of that? Alright, I think we're at the point where we can test things, so... Man. Testing time. Alright, chat, we need areas with wood. Basically, a zero knowledge proof is proof that shows that a certain mathematical object has a property without ever actually revealing anything about the object. Oh, that's... Yeah, I see what you mean then, Redmore. Like, that would be... confuzzling. Yeah, this area is tricky because of the rattle there. We have to stay on our toes here. Yes, got it. Okay. Now we can actually work our way through here. And for those who are wondering, yes, I put a lore bit right there. For reasons. So if you want that lore bit, you have to earn it. Now I'm just trying to snack my way to the end there. Carefully carving myself out of path. General officers are more closely related to philosophy and theory of pure science than to pure maths. We think it applies. True, I think it applies as well. That's not what you described. Alright, that'll suffice. Alright, chat. Yes. Wood. Oh. Might have gone a bit overboard with the... Yeah, we'll want to pull that in a bit. Say by about 1, 2, 3, 4, probably about 4 pixels in. Move the left edge of this region 4 pixels. Oh, well, I didn't fall down yet, so. I'd say 1 pixel to the right for the outer edge. Move the right edge of this region 1 pixel to right. Yeah, so I haven't actually fallen off yet, chat, as you can see. But yeah, we can still hear the nice wooden sound effect. Alright, that sounds accurate though. And this is so cool, isn't it, chat? Like, it's such a minor thing, but just hearing the difference in sound effects when you're walking here versus metal. Oh, we need to add a rectangle there. So let's live and die in atmosphere, so that's a good call. Hey, thanks, Repcar. I'm glad you agree. Like, while this was definitely a stretch goal for the demo, I think it's worth the effort. This definitely adds quite a bit to the immersion. And now this is like, you know, obviously going to make or break the game, but definitely adds to it. That's why we need to add that spot there, though. But besides that, let's test the edge. Okay, let me edge out. Now! I fell off. I have to go back. Rattlesnakes everywhere. Who designed it this way? Oh wait, I did. Whee! Okay, that was close. Yeah, and since we're bringing up sound design, Rekor, something that has been important for Heartwell is making sure that the enemies have good sound effects to identify what kind of attack they're about to do. Because, you know, with the art style this has, if it was just purely based on animations, it would be very hard to tell what an enemy's about to do on the fly, especially if they're, you know, especially if they have like multiple attack patterns. But with the addition of the sound effects, that gives just enough of a tell to, in my opinion anyway, to help the player be able to learn it and differentiate it a bit. Well, it's a mixture of sound effects and animation, so by themselves they're not enough, but together I think they work. Okay, that's the very edge. Okay, so one edge is correct. Yeah, okay, so the actual edge that this one's out is good. It's just that one section we need to add to. Now, next one section isn't for a little bit. Let's do a little bit of platforming over there. Alright, this would be stuff like make the enemies glow a bit for different attacks or using frames a bit different. Well, I wouldn't want to make an enemy low unless it made sense for that particular attack rep. Or, like, in my opinion, just having an enemy just glow brightly for, like, a special attack, like some kind of, like, unblockable and Giant, for example, I feel like that's, like, the easy way out, personally. Like, don't get me wrong, I might use it in situations where I think it makes sense, but for the most part, I'm approaching this from the mindset that I want to avoid doing that unless I see no other good way to telegraph it. Since that way, that leads me to create, you know, different types of animations, or perhaps use different sound effects in more creative ways. Well, sound cues by themselves, I agree, but like having different animations, even slightly different animations mixed with different sound cues can be enough. Note, again, all depends on the circumstance. Like, all these enemies you see here so far, they only have one attack, so it really doesn't matter as much for them. I'm more thinking for, like, boss fights and stuff like that, where it's, like, it's very important to differentiate what the boss is actually doing. Ah, I see. Fair enough, Ripper. Snack. Snack. Listen to this, chat. Listen to it. It's glorious. Let's try it against the edge and see if I got this outer edge correct. Oh, nope. Yeah, it needs a little adjustment. Yeah, using a mouse and keyboard and trying to move pixel by pixel can be tricky, especially without a wall to run against. Literally just trying to carefully edge my way out. Wait, what? Oh, that's a problem. Well, that answers that question. This one needs to move one pixel to the middle. Move the... As destroying, I am testing these different regions to make sure the sound effects are playing in the appropriate areas. Right, that seems good, so it's just this right edge that needs moved out a bit. Alright. So we have the middle platform. Yep, okay, same deal. This don't be for all platforms. All 3 platforms. Yeah, alright, I think that'll cover that area in terms of what needs done. That's the shower room. Oh, that was close. Missed us by a hair. So let's make this attack. Oh, I missed. Nah. I almost instinctively pressed the death counter. But this isn't a challenge, bro. This is just development. I can't believe I missed that. Energy. No. The cheese spot. There we go. The cheese. Oh, they're moving ahead. I had no idea about that. Well, of course, in Red Copper Nicholson is literally a public forum. If you need to say something in private, you do it in a Discord DM. I won't say anything. Let's just clear this area next, just to be safe for testing purposes. Okay, now we can test in peace. What? Perfect. Oh. Oh, they only pulled out. All right. that covers that. Now we'll go over to the other side of the... I'll head over to the other side. Well, I think Copper Nicholson is the thought that counts. I know what a A10 warthog is, Copper Nicholson. It's a type of a... So the A10 warthog is a type of jet, a fighter jet, that's primarily used for surface to ground stuff. Yeah, it's I agree, Darkward. It is the thought that counts. Time to test things. Rattlesnakes must die. Okay, that needs moved out. Yeah. Move the left edge. Yeah. Well, the reason I actually know of the A10 Warthog, primarily Copper Nicholson, is actually because of Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Because in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, the A10 Warthog, or the Warthog as it's called for short, was actually probably the first time I've ever seen a strafing run type of store streak in a Call of Duty game actually be good. Because most of the problem with like called the strafing run types of store streaks is the idea in Call of Duty is if you defeat a number of people, multiple people in a life, you get a strong something or other that you can use a reward to snowball how well you're doing. The problem I tend to have with called the strafing run kind of store streak. So basically it's like either a jet or something flies across the screen and tries to deal damage in an area, is they tend to whiff a lot because they only go by once and they're not very good at like targeting an area, or like people just hide inside. So, but that's where the A10 Warthog, at least in Black Ops 2, stands out. Is it's a strafing run score streak, but it's actually a really high-end score streak. However, it's actually good, and the reason it's good is because not only does it first of all, it strafes multiple times across the battlefield. So it's not like it strafes once and it's done. It strafes like anywhere from like 3 or 4 times. It lasts like a really significant amount of time for a Call of Duty game where it's strafing over. So it's not, it strafes multiple times, and it also has I remember that its machine gun was actually like really accurate. So like instead of being a situation where it's like, oh well, this machine gun will cover a little bit of area and then maybe it'll accidentally defeat someone, this thing is like the Terminator of machine guns. So it's like if you're outside when that thing's flying by, it will get you. Like it will absolutely get you. And if you're not directly in its flight path or in like a band around its flight path, it'll probably still get you, because in addition to its machine gun, it's also dropping like tons and tons of missiles to its like left and right at diagonals. So even if you're like well off to the side of its main attack path, it's still probably gonna get you. And that's anyway, that's how I know of the A10 Warthog, is because of that. Black Ops 2. Also Cobra defeated. Alright, now for the last areas to test. More stalls. Alright, got the corral real quick. That was a risky play, but it played out. Okay. Testing the edges. Lower edge seems fine. Let's test the upper edge. Okay. Perfect. Oh. Oh, interesting, but that one's actually at the correct spacing out. Alright. Interesting. Looks like we actually got that one lined up. Whoa. Okay, I think that one's actually fine. Alright. What about the stalls in the second bathroom? Yeah, we were very quick on the draw there to actually defeat them before they do anything. Dr. Bradalangi. And now it's no longer a problem. Okay. The reason why I'm walking out down here, Chaz, to make sure that there aren't sound effects playing on the lower floor where they shouldn't be. Now I try to edge my way out to the... Oh, I had it there. Very edge. Be a little tricky to line up. Oh, there we go. Good. Okay. Now the right edge probably won't be the same problem as up top, I think. Let that out, like makes the platform feel more fair. I agree. Now, when you say the amount of platform, just mean the sound effects, or just mean in general with how the platforms are spaced, Director? Oh. Huh. So this one down here is fine, but that one up there is not. Okay. Good to know. Now, Dorothy can be off the platform before she falls as good as well. Ah, fair enough. I mean, to be fair, that leeway is, as you put it, is just a consequence of how it's programmed. But I think it's a good consequence of how it's programmed, because like in most platforming games, in my opinion, you basically, if you're on a platform, you basically go as far out as you can from the platform while still technically having your hitbox on it without falling off. It's very much the same in like the Sonic games and the Mario games, where like you can get pretty far off towards the edge of a platform before you actually fall off. But once you fall off, then of course you're stuck in the lower area. I know what you're saying though. Alright. top left vertical area. All right, anything else? I think that one's actually fine. Main estimates didn't have that. Really? I had no idea. All right. Well, good to know. Yeah, personally, I'm more of the opinion that if you're, you know, obviously it depends on the type of game it is, but with a lot of platformers, I think it just makes sense to, if your hitbox is still on the platform, you should stay on it, unless like the platform is specifically designed to be slippery or sloped or something like that. Just because it just makes more, I mean, obviously it doesn't make sense from a physics standpoint, but it makes sense from a, well, physics isn't like real life physics standpoint, but it makes sense from a gameplay standpoint. Okay. Alright, surprisingly, I think these sections are fine too. So, regions with a tested but need the adjustments in order as detailed and retested before moving without a All right, chat. So I think this will be a good place to wrap things up for now. So we did some tests. Obviously, I have a big list here of stuff to fix, but that's all right. We identified those. We made some progress. We'll put up with this next dev stream. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for a raid. But if you're watching on YouTube and like what I saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. It's free to subscribe on YouTube. Don't change your mind later. It's a free way to show support. Watch on YouTube. Have an amazing night.